Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. Welcome to Show and Tell for the month of March. Happy Women's History Month. I am joined by some of our team members who are joining us globally for this month's Show and Tell. We're so glad to have you join us again. For anyone who has not joined prior to this, we do this once a month, the first Wednesday of every month at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a chance for our global team just to come together and just kind of go over things that are currently inspiring us. A lot of times we start making cultural connections from these meetings, and they actually lead to things later on, things like macro trends, design aesthetics, other things on our site. But primarily, it's just a chance to really go over things that are inspiring us and what we're feeling in the zeitgeist. Before we jump into today's links with the team, I just want to go over a couple things. We love to hear from you during show and tell. We love to hear what you're really loving, what you're inspired by, things that you're seeing out there. So please use the chat box to communicate with everyone. We can talk. Sometimes it's a little hard for me to chime in, but the rest of the team is on and they can talk to you as well. Just please make sure that you use the pull down in the chat box and choose panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your chat as we go through today's webinar. And then we do have an event coming up that we're very excited about. You can now register. Registration is open for our fall winter 22-23 women's runway top trend takeaways. This is happening on March 15th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is an opportunity for you to learn from our amazing women's team of experts. They will do a live presentation on key insights from, of course, the current fashion weeks. I believe we are in Milan currently, so we still have Paris to go. But it will be a really great hour for you to really just learn key themes, colors, key items, etc., from the fall winter 22-23 runway season. So you can register at fashionsnoops.com, our website. It is free to attend for everyone. So please do that and get it on your calendars ASAP. It's going to be a great webinar. So give me 1 minute and I'm going to jump into today's links. We have some really great ones. And we're going to start with Nico from our culture team. Hi, Nico.
Hey everyone, Nico here from the culture team. And my three links today are actually all music related. You know, I know like the news that lately has been very heavy and we've all been glued to our TV. So I wanted to give you something that maybe when you're taking a break from watching the news, you can just watch something lighthearted. So I don't know what it is about lately, but I've just been in this space where I'm really into consuming content related to music. And everything that I've kind of been consuming lately has been in that realm. So the first one is this docu-series on Apple TV that's hosted by the amazing producer, Mark Ronson. And he is behind some of the most iconic contemporary records from artists like Amy Winehouse, Lady Gaga, Miley Cyrus, Bruno Mars. He's probably most well known for producing Back to Black, Amy Winehouse's second album, as well as Uptown Funk with Bruno Mars. So we could watch like a minute of the trailer.
You got it. Here we go.
I've always been obsessed with how things sound. The difference between a great song and an iconic recording. I am Mark Ronson, and whenever someone sits down to play me a song, I'm already thinking about the sound.
Be impressive.
Sound matters. And when I first started out, I wondered, how did they do that?
Rap songs started having drum machines. That was like, oh, I gotta get a drum machine.
Just like that, you can turn any noise into music. Just like that. We're constantly searching for new sound.
Made a whole album with one of these.
Where did you actually sample the seagull things?
I think it's just me. Pure genius, man.
Pure genius, I meant.
Machines are used to create the sounds of the people that are not in the mainstream. There's only so much that we can do with language.
The whole world opened up. Wait a minute.
You start to see bedroom producers.
Let me do a little editing.
The next person that is going to change music has no idea how to play the guitar. Is this allowed to happen? I've been doing it wrong for 30 years. Don't believe me,
We
just
can
watch.
stop it there. I could just give you guys like a basic rundown.
This is a PV decade. I can't believe this is really happening.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah,
Yeah.
so basically in the series, he deep dives into different elements of contemporary production. For example, the first episode is all about auto-tune, another episode's all about guitar distortion, and another one is all about synthesizers. And he talks to famous artists and engineers that are known for those particular elements. And you get to see him in the studio, kind of playing with different sounds. And for me, it's really interesting because, you know, music is one of those things that's just like fashion. It's a mirror of the times. And I think it's really one of the most accurate pictures of the current zeitgeist. You know, like, for example, I learned this really interesting fact when I was watching one of the episodes that music sampling and 808 beats, which hip hop is really known for, rose out of limitations. So, you know, Black neighborhoods in the cities in the 70s and 80s were underfunded, and young musicians did not have access to a lot of the musical instrumentation and education that white communities had. So in order to make music, they had to use what was available to them, which a lot of it was actually pre-existing vinyl records, which they chopped and sampled. And as for 808s, hip hop is known for these 808 drum machines that are very bassy and high treble and electronic. And those were some of the only drum machines that were available to these communities because the mainstream music industry discarded them because they sounded too unrealistic and not like real drums. And now these are two musical elements that are hugely popular in popular music. So that's just one of the really cool stories that Mark exposes in his docuseries. And it's just a really interesting behind the scenes look at music production. And one of those shows that's going to give you a fun fact, like at a party, that people will be like, how did you know that?
Useless trivia, but I love the behind the scenes kind of perspective for these. So it's good,
really
to,
cool,
good to add that to the playlist.
Yeah, and my second link here is a podcast that's hosted by none other than Charlie XCX, who I feel like has shown up on several of my show and tell links for the past year.
Definitely.
And I'm not sorry, because I think she's one of the most influential voices in pop today. And she's actually featured in the first episode of the Mark Ronson docuseries for Autotune. And I actually discovered the docuseries by listening to her podcast featuring him, where he mentions that. So the basic premise of this podcast is basically that Charlie interviews some of the most cutting edge, iconic musicians, producers of the current day, even actors and comedians. And you learn some more about their background, and Charlie asks them what the best song ever is to play in different scenarios. So for example, she'll ask them like, what's the best song ever to play at the peak of a party or in your happiest moments? And some of my favorites featured Barbie Ferreira from Euphoria, who plays Kat, Bowen Yang from SNL, as well as one of my favorite singers, Rina Sawayama.
Yeah, this is a really good list. And 28 episodes. She's been doing this for half a year now. So
yeah, I mean, the lineup is like really iconic.
Very, very nice. Okay, so we're gonna write that down. We got to get that going. Okay.
Yeah, she's hilarious also, just side note. So this last link that I'll go over pretty quickly is a YouTube channel that I discovered recently that does these music essays on different musical movements and genres and iconic artists throughout pop culture history. I said iconic a lot during this presentation, but I promise it's true. I love the video on goth rock and punk and the beginnings of hyperpop, which is like the rising experimental pop genre of today. They're really in-depth, super insightful. So I definitely recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you, Nico. You are iconic. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to share my links now. I have speaking of Nico, I have a lot of literature inspired links this time. So my first one is a new magazine that I became aware of. We haven't had a lot of new magazines in quite some time since pre-COVID. So this one, and I actually have two, there's been two issues. I have them both here. They're really, really beautiful. It's called No Chaser Magazine. The first issue that came out a few months ago, the theme was Rebirth of the Rebellious Spirit. You can see the illustration here in my camera. And then the one that just came out 2 weeks ago is Redefining American Style. The man behind this magazine, you probably know if you are a street style fan, his name is Edwin Gare. He runs the very iconic street style blog, Garisms. He's been around for quite some time. If you've been to any trade show or fashion week, you've seen him in his iconic trademark, amazing hats. The reason why I love this magazine, and I just got the actual print issues the other day, so I'm still perusing through them, but I really love how diverse it is as far as the profiles of people. I love how rich the culture is. You can actually get a lot of it here on the website. You can see their food and beverage. There's videos. They work with brands, Cucinelli, very traditional brands, all the way to street wear brands. There's some beautiful things here in culture, travel, and of course, style. They do playlists. You can buy merch, but highly, highly recommend it. It's $20 an issue. You can buy them on the website. I also assume that probably some of the main newsstands in New York and LA probably have them as well. But I really love these features they do each month called Ethos, which is one of my favorite words, but they profile someone in the industry, whether it's a photographer, whether it's a artist or writer, etc., photographer. But anyway, check it out. It's a beautiful, beautiful magazine. And I really love how thematic it is as well. The paper smells good, but it's just been a long time since we've actually held a beautiful new magazine. So I wanted to profile that. You can also find the Instagram page, which I've linked here for you as well, which is right here. And you can go, check it out and follow it. So that's the first link. The second link is something that our men's team featured for Black History Month in one of our Hot Now sections. And I'm just so passionate about this book. It's a book that just came out about 3 weeks ago. I am waiting on my copy currently. It's been sold out everywhere, which is a great sign, but it's called Black Ivy. And I just love this book. And let me tell you why. So, probably in the last 10 years, there's been a plethora of exhibitions and books dedicated to Ivy style. And of course, now with this kind of resurgence in new prep, which a fusion of streetwear like Emmy Leon Dore and Noah and et cetera, it's kind of back on everyone's radar. But all of those exhibitions and books previously were so whitewashed. And I kind of now definitely realize it looking back at images from when I would go to these exhibitions. No one had ever really done a beautiful book really profiling how men of color also were super iconic and influential in Ivy style, especially through midway of the 20th century. So Guardian did a really great little run through here of images, but the reason why I just love it is because it shows how Black men, especially here in the United States, adopted this, traditionally Ivy League inspired clothing in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, and 80s. They have everyone from Miles Davis to Sidney Poitier to Martin Luther King. My favorite thing about the book, though, is they actually have just images of regular guys and how they personified the look. And I'll kind of show you some of those examples as we scroll through. But it's a beautiful coffee table book. I encourage you to buy it. It's like $45 on Amazon, well worth the price. So, here's a photo, 1958 in Harlem with Sonny Rollins. You can see here some jazz musicians in New Orleans. Here's another one, Lee Morgan. But I want to show you my favorite photo really quickly because it is definitely my favorite photo in the book. And there's Martin Luther King, Sidney Poitier. But this is my favorite picture. I feel like it could be literally right now in the year 2022. Here are two young men hanging out in Watts in LA in 1966. Photographer Bill Ray, a lot of his photos are here, and he was just a typical photojournalist, but a lot of his photos certainly apply to this book. But this literally could be a campaign in menswear right now, ripped right off of the runways. I'm just mad about it. I love the sweater polo. I love the dark denim. I love the socks. I love everything about it. So you'll get this link when we send them out and you can kind of peruse through it. But please, please buy the book. It's such an amazing book. The guys that are behind it, Jason Jules and Graham Marsh, who's an art director, they're the ones who did this book. And so I just think you should do it. There's a chapter called In the City, and it is where you get basically street style photos, if you will, from the 50s and 60s. And like I said, any of them could be from modern day New York City, Tokyo, London, etc. So check it out. Huge fan. Can't wait to get through mine when it gets here. And then my final link today, Patricia on our women's team made me aware that Bodhi opened a new store in LA a few weeks ago. I checked this morning, there's dozens of articles about it. I just put 3 links here for you guys so you can see different images. New York Times, GQ, and Vogue. I'm just going to click the Vogue one just to take you through it. But I can promise you that there's many people on our team that are going to be using images from this new store in the seasons ahead as we kind of develop our new forecast, because it is that inspirational. Basically, it's in a super nondescript area of Melrose in Hollywood, for anyone that knows. I think it was a former carpentry store or something. There's vertical blinds hanging from the outside. The whole inspiration is basically that it's supposed to be like a natural history museum exhibition inspiration. And what I loved is that when you walk in, you'll see a dodo. And it was the first thing that they bought because Emily Bodie basically thought that this life-size plaster skeleton of a dodo bird was such a good kind of cautionary tale on overconsumption. And so she put it there front and center. Everything in the store feels really personal and timeless. And Emily Bodie basically said, quote, all of our clothing has a narrative. It's either intrinsic to the fabric or where it was sourced. It's all about preservation. So they wanted to go into this store with the same kind of storytelling. There's the dodo bird that I was talking about, but they feature all of this beautiful wood carpentry. It's walnut cabinetry. There's exposed beams. There's recessed archways. But here are just some of the photos. Again, you can check the doc later for more. There's a dinosaur. The cash wrap area I'll show you is one of my favorite spots. Sorry, the images are loading really slow. But we just kind of love this whole storytelling narrative that's going on here and kind of how dark and moody it is. Here's the cash wrap with this beautiful mood board hanging behind it. So, and there's the exterior of the store, completely nondescript. Looks like something you could find in Texas, New Mexico, anywhere. But really crazy about it. And again, there's hundreds of photos that are online. So you can just Google Bodie LA and you'll see everything. They have a really good focus on fabrics. Everyone's a big fan of them. So just wanted to profile that new store. Read the article when you get a chance, just the whole amazing art direction and creative direction of building it is pretty amazing. They really just kind of like this idea of making an institutional space feel very warm and a little weird and quirky. And you definitely get that. So big fan of that. All right, those are my links. I'm going to pass it over to Melissa.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Moylan, VP of Women's at FS. First, I wanted to share a little snippet of a conversation that was from Business of Fashion's Voices conference, I think at the end of last year, with Ellen MacArthur about circular design. And I think you'll get the gist of it, but just to kind of give a preview of that, her 3 big principles of circular design are eliminating waste through the design itself. So at the very beginning, as well as her second one is being able just to circulate products as well as materials for as long as possible. And then finally, to regenerate through natural systems. So we'll have a look at that.
Okay, I'll unmute.
A product with a little bit less for a little bit cheaper so people can buy it a little bit cheaper, and you're kind of racing down, how can we make a bit more profit from this turns all of that on its head. This is a race to the top. This is to build better, to design better, to change the system, to enable access over ownership, to let people have these products and participate in the solution. Business as usual doesn't work. It's not the solution. And I think that's where we need to begin the process from, is realizing that actually carrying on as we are is not a solution. It's never going to work. We have a growing world population. We have finite resources. We have the climate crisis. We have to change the system. Can't we change the system from linear to circular so it works for us? So consumers make the world a better place through their choices, through the fact that the cotton that they're buying is grown in a regenerative way and it's enhancing biodiversity and it's making the topsoil richer, not poorer. Because at the moment, we're locked in a race to the bottom. And that's about making a product with a little bit less for a little bit cheaper so people can buy it a little bit cheaper. And you're kind of racing down, how can we make a bit more profit from this? This turns all of that on its head. This is a race to the top.
Very cool.
Yeah, there's so the whole, I also linked on the show and tell doc to the full conversation, which is about 20 minutes long. So I just wanted to just shed light on that. Also, there's a new book that's out called Circular Design for Fashion from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So I think that's something I definitely want to get my hands on, all about how the life cycle of garments could be extended using new systems throughout manufacturing. In the conversation, I thought that it was also really interesting how she shed light on different industries. So for example, she said for the food retailers, currently they're all competing over this nature positive food, and just like different ways of dealing with a circular economy or implementing it for different industries. Something else that she kind of left at the end of the conversation with is that she mentioned that if the biggest players in the fashion industry say this is what it should now look like for everybody, that makes it easier for the policymakers to actually change things and make this circular economy for fashion happen. So it's a really good conversation to view.
That's interesting. And for those of us that don't know, what is Ellen MacArthur's background?
So she was a sailor, and I think that that's really interesting. Like she because it's something that's so non-related to fashion, and I think what she's trying to achieve with her foundation, it's there's a big focus on fashion, and it's about the circular economy and how we cultivate that. And she retired from the world of sailing. I think I want to say like 2010 or something, and created this foundation. And from that point, this has been her life's work, and it's really gained a lot of momentum. I think she has a lot of really solid ideas for us all to learn from.
Great.
And then the next one, so this is kind of turning it back to Fashion Week just for a minute, but it's kind of a fantastical version of something that we saw in Milan from Delcourt. And for those of you who don't know, this is only Delcourt's third runway show, but I really felt that they are positioned as almost like Europe's new next design house. Of course, we have all of the very well-established ones. I thought this one was particularly beautiful. It also made sense to me because it reminded me of our design aesthetic Untamed. The inspiration for it was actually from a moth. So you saw, it was a very couture vision. So you had like this extreme volume, these like sculpted cocooning shapes that were inspired by the wings of moths, a lot of really beautiful draping, pleat work, ruche fabrics, and prints.
Love that. Well, only 3 seasons. I feel like it's been
right.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a lot longer.
Yeah, and I feel like they are firmly cemented at kind of like a new major fashion house. And so this is another new store that's in LA. It's only opening on Friday, so I don't have any nice pictures to show you. And the article just explains the concept for this. So everybody's familiar with Revolve. They kind of started out as a retailer for party dresses. They shifted that when it was COVID and, included more classifications. But what's interesting is that they've really relied a lot on celebrities and influencers to push their message across. And up until this point, it's been very aspirational in terms of the events that they host. So they've had spaces on Melrose Avenue, but it's only been for influencers. They've done a lot of like far-flung locations. I want to say in like the Maldives and places like that. They've also done like their own vision of Coachella, which is again, like only influencers and celebrities. So now what's different is that they're creating Revolve Social Club that's opening on Friday. And what it is, it's a lounge, it's a cafe, and it's their first real store that invites anybody. The thing that I guess is still a little bit exclusive is that the second floor of it is going to be a gym and wellness center for your influencers and celebrities. And I think that it's interesting. I feel like it's a turning point in like that very exclusive influencer only to finally like give everybody the experience of like, this is like what their vision of VIP is. And then one of their co-chief executives, Michael Mente, he had a quote that I thought was interesting. He said, providing the stage for her to wear the clothes, the cafe for her to brunch in is ultimately a bigger priority for us than racks of clothes within the store. Ultimately, these types of things drive sales back to the website. So I just thought that was interesting. It's obviously a very different concept from the Bodhi store that's also on Melrose, but good to note nonetheless.
You know, Melrose is in the zeitgeist this month.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Thank you, Melissa. Those are great. Our other Melissa. Hi, Hago.
Hi everyone. I'm Melissa Hager. I'm the VP of Beauty and Wellness here at FS. So the beauty team, we're working on 3 different trend stories at the same time. So I kind of picked one from each of them that I thought was super cool. So the first one is Dubai is opening this the Museum of Future. It actually opened in February, and I just thought it was like super cool, like the way that it looked. We're doing a story around like aliens and how everyone's fascinated with like aliens in space. So I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see, what kind of, I guess, what the museum has inside. But I just thought the building itself was like really striking and beautiful. And I know the architect that composed it, they use like computer aided design and this state-of-the-art technology to come up with it. So I just thought as a sculpture itself, it was really beautiful.
Wow, it's like a relic dropped from another Earth, from another
planet. It's like the spaceship landed and made it into a museum.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, anyone that's there, please fill us in. You can be our reporter. Let us know what's going on there at that museum.
Yes. So the second one, we have another trend called Flourish, and it's about coming together. It's about celebrating life, celebrating our cultures. So I just loved the colors in this this photography series. So it's by Alia Romagnoli. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But I was just like obsessed with like the images, the colors, the way that it was shot. You can just basically keep scrolling down and, look at it. If you want to read the article, she kind of goes over like what she was like influenced by. I know a lot of it was like, her experiences and her identity and, growing up with censorship and queer narratives in the media. So I also thought it was great because I know we just had our gender inclusive webinar last week. So it went pretty hand in hand, but I just, again, thought these images were striking and I loved all the colors and they're just super beautiful.
These are beautiful. You made me think, for anyone on this webinar that was not able to join the gender inclusive webinar, it's probably one of my favorites that we've had in years. I really mean that. So Nico and Danny on our women's team did an amazing job. So please seek it out. I believe it is now available for everyone on our various media outlets. But please check it out. It's so good. Sorry, Hago, I just.
No. Yeah, it reminded me of that too. So I'm glad you shared that. And it was a very great and powerful webinar. So definitely. And then my last one, so the other story we're working on, we're calling Shadow Work, and it's about, having to reach that dark side in order to heal, in order to get to the lightness. So this is a new exhibit that's opening in April at the Brooklyn Museum. It's called Guadalupe Maravilla is the artist. It's called Tierra Blanca Joven. So he centers around the need for care and healing, and particularly for the undocumented and cancer community. So I thought, there is just, this is the only image we have now since it's not open, but I thought it was interesting, the darkness that he brings into it. He devotes the healing through ancient methods. So there's a lot of like sound as medicine in it. There's a lot of sculptures, paintings, drawings. But again, I love the whole, we continue, kind of like Nico mentioned too, we continue to see sound work as healing. So I think it's going to be a really interesting and I'm sure a beautiful exhibit, but really excited to see what that is. So I just wanted to share for anyone who's in New York, I would definitely go check it out.
Yeah, we'll check that out. That's interesting that he's a part of both of those communities. Of course, we've seen exhibitions coming from an undocumented point of view, but it's interesting also just his experience of being a cancer survivor, and he works that into the work as well.
Yeah. And that's
Thanks, Diego.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, now from our culture team, we have Erza.
Hi, everyone. So there's this new exhibition in Paris. It's called The Art of Learning. It explores alternative modes of education. And this is something that our team has been, following since the pandemic hit, the shift in education with like new certifications replacing 4-year degrees, or just the idea of like unlearning and deprogramming and a lot more. So I thought it was interesting to see this. This exhibition takes interest in like the unbridled imagination of a young child, the way they play in nature, dream up stories, draw whatever is on their mind, and how to continue it into adulthood. So there's 200 works and documents that explores non-schools, anti-universities, talking circles, educational walks and video universities that emerged actually through the 60s and 70s. I learned through reading this article. And the exhibition takes users through 6 thematic sections, and they're identified as 6 verbs: creating, speaking, agitating, programming, searching, and maintaining. And some of the works here are usable, tangible, and they're really reinforcing the key principle of learning through doing. And at the very end of the exhibit, if you go down a little bit, there is an experimental classroom. That one, it's called Schooltopia. And that's open to the public and explores autotelism. And it's the idea that an event or activity is the end in itself without the need for a prescribed outcome. And I thought it was beautiful that the curator said in a quote here, becoming deeply immense, losing all notion of time, feeling intense joy and the possibility of serenity. Such a state could be sought as an end in itself, with any creative or productive outcome being contingent and non-essential. So in our design for the classroom, we incorporated a series of boxes containing games without rules and without words that the pupils could use. Art offers a unique access to the autotelic experience. I always love when I find new words in an article. And I think autotelism could definitely apply in other facets of our instant gratified life, posting things we love without looking at likes, pursuing our passions regardless of the instant profit. It's more of that slow focus that we've also been talking about.
Wow, this is a great topic. I don't think we've really broached that topic prior in a meaningful way in our culture section. So we can look forward to something coming from your team on that?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you, Erza. Okay, so we have a special treat, Lucy, who's been working with our culture team. She's in our New York office. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucy. I'm an intern in the culture team. Today, I wanted to share something with you to celebrate the beginning of this Women's History Month. And here we have this amazing artist. She's called Jessie Mockrin. She's based in LA. And with her paintings, she redefines the female figure within art history. If you go down and take one of those double frames painting with the pink details. So as you can see, she takes inspiration from European paintings from the 17th and 18th century, and she literally reframes everything in order to emphasize the struggle and pain of the women subjects. So I think it's so inspiring to have these Baroque-like paintings that actually turn out to be contemporary feminist statements.
Yeah, it kind of is giving me very Kehinde Wiley vibes too.
Yes,
just because of that.
It's so strong and powerful, a mix of history but contemporary art.
Yeah, the colors are beautiful. The way that she uses the jewel tones, really fascinating.
It's like a kind of like a feminist Caravaggio, if we can say that.
No, I get it. I totally understand what you mean. Wow, these are great. We haven't had a good painter in a show and tell in a while. This is awesome. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks for contributing. Hopefully we'll see you again next month.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're moving on to Jason.
Hey, everybody. My name's Jason. I'm the men's senior strategist and color manager. So my share is short and sweet today. It's a series of these galactic photos from a Finnish photographer that look like they were taken by the Hubble telescope, but are actually close-ups of oil spills in parking lots. He refers to them as his oil paintings. And I just admired them because, it's another example of how inspiration can be found in the most mundane places, as long as you look at them from a creative perspective.
Wow, these are gorgeous. If you would have told me that, I would have never thought that. I certainly would have thought they were space. Very cool. Colors are awesome. We're all kind of deep into color research. for a couple of years ahead right now. So I think we're all kind of like noticing, interesting intricacies in color and inspiration. So this is another good one. Thanks, Jason. And last but not least, we're going to end today's webinar with Nia, who is our Director of Materials and Fabrics. Hi, Nia.
Hey guys. So typically I love sharing kind of anything sustainability related. So today I have two upcycling links to share. This first one, I came across a really interesting article on how deconstruction policies are being adopted across cities over traditionally held methods of demolition, which typically, as we know, leaves kind of no room for the reuse of materials. So this article kind of briefly dives into how cities are adopting these policies that require contract companies to take structures apart by hand in a delicate, almost surgical fashion, rather than kind of smashing everything into like unusable waste. The idea is that if the process is slower and more intentional, then these firms can extract wood, bricks, marble, etc., so that the materials can then be sold eventually and reused locally. And then digging a bit deeper, I came across so many other resources kind of in the circular construction world that I thought were really interesting. And a lot of these companies are kind of pushing for a future where past builds can kind of be like a resource depot for future builds. So again, kind of touching on the circular kind of methods that Melissa Moreland shared, but here from kind of a different perspective. So I thought this was really interesting.
This is cool. Nia, is it, not to put you on the spot, but maybe from your research, is this a very expensive process?
Yeah, so they kind of dig into this in the article because it takes so much longer. The price is a lot higher, but for them, they kind of see the price being offset by then eventually selling some of the materials that you're able to extract, that can kind of offset that price. So there's a really interesting kind of alternative that, maybe I think we're going to see a lot more in the future.
And also if this material becomes available for future builders, that kind of defines what the future buildings will look like as well. It's kind of like, it's an interesting perspective to think about all these pieces now becoming.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
part of the innovation process, right?
Yeah.
And inspiration. Yeah.
And then the second one is kind of more of like a cheeky example of upcycling, but I came across this really cool Japanese artist, Yukiko Morita, and she has this brand where she actually turns real bread into these kind of lighting objects, upcycles waste from different bakeries, and she started to grow a lot in popularity. You might have seen her stuff before. I love this non-clock that she has. And personally, I think even amongst us at Fashion Snoops, we've kind of been obsessed with bread over the past year or so, or even kind of looking into it for some future color shifts. So I thought this was kind of like a great confirmation of again, this weird obsession we have with bread and just really just comforting, wholesome things as well.
This is great. I'm glad you said that because bread has come up several times in the last week in various planning meetings for next season. So I think there's nothing as nostalgic and comforting as carbs. So it has to be the reason.
Yeah. So fun to see it as lighting. So
yeah.
We could just wear it and have it in our home and not eat it. That would be easier.
I feel like it would make us hungry though. That's great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for everyone for joining us. So we will send out an email with all of today's links. And of course, as always, you can find this webinar and all of our webinars that are open to the public on our YouTube channel. Please seek it out later this week and you'll get those links and a link to it as well if you'd like to share anything. Otherwise, we have a great month ahead. We have that runway webinar, lots of exciting things happening. Happy Women's History Month. Women rule the world. We would not be where we are without women. So please, let's take a moment to appreciate our amazing women. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next month for the next show and tell. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.